Law enforcement swarming a Tucson home overnight, just 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's place.
This comes as it has been a full 2 weeks since she was last seen.
Let's bring in retired FBI supervisory agent James Gagliano live outside of Nancy Guthrie's home, and Darrin Porcher, former NYPD lieutenant, former NYPD undercover narcotics officer, and U.S. Army veteran. Both are outside Pima County Sheriff's Office. So, James, we've been talking to you all morning. What is the latest, and what is your analysis of the latest?
Well, last night, Charlie, the statement that was put forth on social media by the Pima County Sheriff's Office essentially said, at this juncture, yes, there was police activity at a location that's just several miles northwest of my location here in front of Nancy Guthrie's house. And then basically stated that on the advice of the FBI, there would be no more messaging regarding this police activity. Look, I think it tells us a lot. It tells us that there is an uptick now. We've got close to 20,000 leads. All those leads have to be run down. The vast majority of them are going to end up being nothing. But you still want to encourage the public, if you see something, say something. So all that's being run down right now. I think you're also going to see, and I'll predict this, a return to Nancy Guthrie's home behind me. I still think that there are things that law enforcement feels like that they can possibly get out of another run through there. And what do I mean? Well, the last week or so, we've been walking around this neighborhood, taking a look also at the structure and her property from the drone footage, and just seeing where there were other potential entry points. These style homes, they're built sturdy. They have that, the southwestern flair. It's Latin American and Spanish architecture. I still am not convinced that the intruder or intruders came in through the front door, a heavy oak-type door with a rejas, which means bars in Spanish, which is like a ventilation grating system. So I have a feeling there's going to be more work done in this house here. They're going to come back here and try to retrace the steps of whoever or however many people made entry into her house that night and then ended up ultimately abducting her.
So, Darrin, give us your take. I mean, you've been at the sheriff's office there, and I presume there hasn't been any activity this morning. But based on what we saw overnight, particularly that Range Rover that was seized, that now is presumably a crime scene, where do you think this investigation is headed today?
Well, speaking from a position of conjecture, we really don't know everything based on what's been introduced to the public. But when we look at it from the geography, that house where Nancy was living, or where Nancy lives, is 2 miles away. And it takes you roughly 8 minutes to drive from that house where the warrant was executed on to Nancy's house. Then when we look to the Range Rover, could this be a possible vehicle that was used as it relates to going to the location and extracting either both Nancy and the abductor? That's a possibility. One of the things that the investigators are going to do is they're going to look to the geofencing at the location to connect the cell towers to the individuals in question that were possibly taken into custody to see if they were in fact at the location and were they communicating. I think this is all speculation, but at the same token, it makes a lot of sense. It's somewhat relevant.
James, you said earlier in a segment that you agreed with some of the other investigators that I asked this question to, that this was a home invasion gone wrong. It certainly would look like that when you saw that creepy video of the masked guy outside the home. He looks like a home invader, and yet why would a home invader take a body out of the house? Even if it goes wrong and Nancy Guthrie gets injured and this isn't the way you expected it to go, why remove the body? Why not just get out?
Yeah, Rachel, it does. I notice a lot of people in my business are looking at this now from the perspective of the ransom note or notes, quite possibly not having any type of nexus to the actual abduction. Yeah, that's not a standard tactic for somebody that's going to be involved in a home invasion. Why are you conducting a home invasion? You want to go in and you want to rob a family, and you're going to do it with violence. You're going to come in, you're going to storm the place, you're going to take things, and then you're going to leave. But again, going back to the motivations, for profit, right? Or was it for revenge?
Right.
Now, Mrs. Guthrie is an 84-year-old woman, not the typical type of target we would see. She's not necessarily a high net worth person or target where the extortion was going to be based on money alone. So could it just been a situation where the house was cased and it was an opportunity to rob an old lady? Possibly. If you look at the terrain behind me, you know, Dr. Porcher and I were cops and agents in New York City for, you know, over 2 decades each. This is the exact opposite of that. The topography here is arduous. It's rolling, undulating hills with creosote bushes and agave plants and cacti. And during the day right now, you look at it and you say, wow, you can see the house directly behind me. At night, Rachel, and you know this from Arizona, it gets so dark you can't see your nose in front of your face. So I also think that there'll be more scouring of the terrain and the topography out here. Folks looking for something, anything, a discarded cigarette butt, another glove, that kind of thing. All those things are going on, while also the technology part of this, the telemetry, the geolocation, where you do a geofencing and find out what cell phones, what personal electronic devices pinged in this area, and then trying to connect it to one other piece or link that will put them in touch with another suspect or subject.
Well, James, if there's revenge, it doesn't mean it has to be revenge on Nancy. It could be revenge on the family, on one of the siblings. There could be other motivations. It's also perplexing, but it's been really interesting talking to both of you because you are among the most experienced in this, and we will continue to check in with you as everything unfolds there in Tucson. Thank you so much, James and Darrin.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.